Everybody, welcome to my show with no name. Today I'm looking at Bobbie Gentry, one of the first female singer-songwriters. Roberta Lee Streeter, as she was born. That was in 1942. She's now retired. In 1967, her Ode to Billie Joe went to #1 in the U.S. She had 10 more singles on the charts, and her album Fancy was nominated for a Grammy. Born in Mississippi, raised by her maternal grandparents on their farm, they traded a cow for a piano when Bobbie Jo showed interest in music. At 13, she moved to California to live with her mom, who had remarried. Bobbie adopted a stage name taken from the 1952 film Ruby Gentry, about a poor but beautiful girl from the backwoods who married a tycoon. She enrolled at UCLA as a philosophy major, but transferred to the LA Conservatory of Music. For her early career, she intended to write songs to sell to other artists, and the demo she recorded for Ode to Billie Joe for Capitol had her own vocal because it would be less expensive than to hire a singer to do it. Capitol liked it, signed her, but relegated the song to a B-side with Mississippi Delta as the A-side, a more commercial track, but the producer added a string section to Ode to Billie Joe that was so hauntingly beautiful that Capitol moved it to the A-side. It was released in 1967, and it shot to #1, and is on the Rolling Stone magazine's list of 500 greatest songs of all time. An album of hastily recorded demos was out within a month, and rather than filler, the songs were made more of an anthology describing Gentry's rural background, and these hit another note across the U.S. The album replaced Sgt. Pepper at the top of the Billboard 200, and Gentry won 3 Grammys. Delta Suite was album #2. She played most of the instruments and wrote everything. It was highly reminiscent of her early recollections in the South. Sales were much lower than the debut, but critics have lauded it as one of the masterpieces of the 60s. Third album, Local Gentry, in '68 only went to number 83 on Cashbox and Zip on Billboard. All was not lost. She partnered with Glenn Campbell on a series of duets, which charted on the country lists. Fifth album, Touch 'Em With Love, was her album, perfunctorily, of cover songs, and it was more soul than country. Her cover of I'll Never Fall in Love Again was #1 in the UK. She continued this phase with her 6th album, Fancy. Only the title track was an original, but it became her 2nd best-selling single. It was seen as an early statement for women's lib. In 1971, her album Patchwork preceded her decision to retire from music. This was not entirely her choice. Capitol went through a shakeup to cut costs, and her contract was in limbo. She could not contractually put out new music with a different label, so in 1976, Max Baer Jr., Jethro on the Beverly Hillbillies, released a film titled Ode to Billie Joe, based on the song. In it, the mystery of the title character's suicide was about the conflict of her love for a guy who would engage in drunken homosexual encounters. Yeah. Reason to go jump off a bridge? Sure, in the 60s, in the South. Fascinating. See if she can come up for another breath of air. No. Okay.
Control.
Control. Control. Sorry about that.
Right now, I'd like you to give a nice warm welcome to our Mississippi River Delta.
That's Johnny Cash.
Bobbie Gentry.
All right. So what was I saying, folks? Oh, yeah, the ode. The ode to Billy Joe was re-recorded, making the song Gentry's first and last chart success. Then at age 40, she jumped away from public attention. No music, no shows, no interviews. She lives in a gated community in Memphis or LA or both. I was just a little kid when Ode to Billy Joe came on the radio. There was absolutely nothing else like that on the air. Most of us could not figure out what the heck she was talking about. But it was still good. I don't know. Do you need to know the exact meaning of lyrics in order for the song to appeal to a person? I don't know. Maybe not. This is an example. Because, it's not like a singer's going to go out of their way to explain every sentence in their song, whether it's a hit or not. It's up to the audience to figure out what it's about. Often an audience will think it's about something totally different and still like it for whatever reason. The audience is part of the equation. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, quite an interesting artist. Thank you for being with me on my show with no name. Got a whole bunch of new artists and past artists to review for you. Just kind of bring them back to life, give them to you to do with as you please. See you next time.